Thunder rolled across the sky as I opened my eyes. Outside, a torrential downpour crashed against the earth. I stared blankly at the familiar army green mosquito net above my head, my heart pounding uncontrollably. This wasn't the cold hospital room I had seen before I died. No, Alara, had woken up. Last night, I'd been burning with fever, delirious, and rambling nonsense. Now, as I lay there, Kalenvar walked in from the doorway, dressed in full uniform. His handsome face was filled with concern. At 25, he was in the prime of his life, confidence and ambition glowing in his eyes and etched into the sharp lines of his face. He had the air of a young officer rising fast. I bolted upright in bed. A flood of memories surged through my mind like a crashing tide. July 15th, 1975. This was the third year of my marriage to Kalenvar, and also the day the nightmare of my past life began. On this exact day, Kalen's first love, Lyra Thorne, returned to the army compound as one of the educated youth coming back from the countryside. That woman, beautiful as a painting, had needed only one Kalen. I'm back, to effortlessly reclaim the man who was supposed to be my husband. And me, Alara, once hailed as the ideal military wife, had been stupid enough to help them find their way back to each other. I had washed the clothes Lyra dirtied with my own hands. I had personally encouraged her to visit our home more often. And even after I discovered their affair, I'd questioned whether I had simply not done enough. It wasn't until 3 years later, on another thunderstorm night, that I found Kalen and Lyra wrapped in each other's arms in the duty room of the military hospital. That was when my heart finally died. That night, I ran into the rain, slipping and falling on a muddy mountain path. I plunged off a cliff. In the final moments before my death, I heard Kalen's desperate scream, "Alara! Alara!" His voice filled with fake, useless regret. "What's wrong? You don't look well," Kalen said now, reaching out to touch my forehead to check if I was still feverish. I instinctively leaned away, avoiding his hand. In my past life, I would have been moved to tears by that small act of concern. I would have held his hand and said, "Kalen, you're so good to me." But now, all I felt was revulsion. "I'm fine," I said calmly, my voice completely void of emotion. Kalen froze for a second. The wife in his memories had always spoken in a soft, sugary tone, like a little girl gently whining. This cold and detached voice. It was the first time he'd ever heard it from me. "Alara, the colonel," a voice called from outside. It was Private Joran, the guard. "There's a call from command, says it's urgent." Kalen frowned slightly, glanced back at me, and said, "I'll go answer it. You should rest a bit more. Tell me what you'd like to eat tonight. I'll have the mess hall make it for you." I didn't respond. I just looked at him in silence. Only after he left did I let out a long breath. Given this second chance at life, I would never again be the foolish woman who gave up everything for a man. This time, I would live for myself. Thunder rolled again outside, like battle drums echoing my resolve. I got out of bed and walked to the vanity. The mirror reflected a pale but still beautiful face. At 22, my skin was fair, my features soft and gentle, the very definition of a classic beauty of this era. What a pity that in my past life, I had wasted this beauty on a man who didn't deserve it. I opened a drawer and took out a photo album, flipping to the photo placed right in the center. In the picture, 18-year-old Lyra Thorne was smiling radiantly. She wore a plaid shirt, hands tucked behind her back, standing beneath a parasol tree. On the back, in neat, elegant handwriting, were the words, "To my dearest Kalen, with love, Lyra. Spring 1970. It was a photo Kalen had never been willing to throw away. In my past life, when I discovered it, not only had I not gotten angry, I'd even said, "First loves are always sweet memories. I understand." I was truly a fool beyond saving. Now, I tore the photo into pieces and tossed the scraps into the trash. After doing that, I suddenly felt refreshed, as though a weight had been lifted from my chest. Footsteps echoed from the stairway. Kalen was coming back. "Alara," he said as he stepped into the room. "Command just notified us that a group of educated youth are returning to the city. They'll arrive tomorrow, and our unit's in charge of receiving them." He sat on the edge of the bed, his tone carrying a trace of excitement. "Can you guess who might be coming back?" Of course I knew. In my past life, when I heard this news, I had naively asked, Is it that classmate of yours, Lyra Thorne? You've mentioned her quite a few times, haven't you? Looking back now, I realized the light in Kaelin's eyes back then wasn't the glow of friendship. It was the fervor of love. I don't know, I said coolly. Who do you think it is? Kaelin was clearly caught off guard. By all logic, he should have acted indifferent, but I could see it in his eyes, an expectation he couldn't quite hide. Maybe Lyra Thorne, he finally said. She's been in the countryside for 3 years. It's about time she came back. Oh, I responded lightly and didn't say another word. Kaelin waited a moment. When he saw I had no other reaction, confusion flickered across his face. Aren't you curious? Lyra's my classmate. She's really nice. I think you two would get along well. In my past life, hearing that would have immediately excited me. I would have asked question after question, and even said I'd prepare a big welcome dinner for Lyra. But this time, I simply said, I'm not curious. Your classmate has nothing to do with me. Kaelin froze at that. He suddenly realized something was off about me today, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what. Alara, what's wrong today? Did I do something wrong? I looked at the confusion written all over his face, and a wave of bitter irony surged in my chest. In my past life, how desperately I'd wanted to hear those words. I had longed for Kaelin to care about how I felt, to ask me if something was wrong. But back then, he had eyes only for Lyra Thorne. He barely remembered he had a wife at all. Now he was finally asking, but I no longer cared. No, I said calmly. I just think your matters are yours to decide. You don't need to discuss everything with me. Kaelin frowned. On the surface, what I said sounded normal, but something about it felt wrong. I used to love being involved in his work. I'd ask what meetings he attended, who he saw, what happened that day. I said it made me feel like I was part of his life. But now I was telling him not to consult me. Alara, I'm tired. I want to sleep a little more. I lay back down and turned away from him. Kaelin sat at the edge of the bed, staring at my back, a growing unease in his heart. He couldn't quite name it, but he felt that something fundamental, had quietly shifted today. The next morning, news had already spread through the military compound. Lyra Thorne was back. I was hanging laundry in the yard when I overheard Mrs. Adara Thorne from next door chatting with someone. Oh my, that Lyra looks even prettier now. 3 years in the countryside didn't ruin her at all. Her skin's still so fair, and she's just as lovely as ever. I know, right? I saw her talking to Captain Var. The two of them look like they were made for each other. Honestly, if her family hadn't gone through all that trouble back then, and she hadn't been sent away, she'd probably be the captain's wife right now. Shoo, quiet. Don't let Alara hear you. But you know, Alara really is a good girl. She's every bit the model military wife. It's just she's a little too soft. I listened to their gossip without feeling a thing. In my past life, hearing that kind of talk had felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I had wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. It had felt like the whole world was mocking me for stealing someone else's place, mocking me for not being good enough for Kaelin Var. Now I understood. These people weren't judging me. They were just enjoying the drama. Alara, Kaelin's voice came from the front gate. I turned my head and saw him standing there with a woman beside him. It had been 3 years since I last saw Lyra Thorne, and she really had become more beautiful. Time had left no trace on her face. Instead, it had added a graceful maturity. She wore a faded blue mouse-style jacket and had her hair braided into 2 neat plaits. Simple as her appearance was, it couldn't hide the elegance she was born with. The worst part was the way she looked at Kaelin. Her gaze was so soft it was almost dripping with sweetness. Alara, let me introduce you, Kaelin said. This is my classmate I told you about, Lyra Thorne. Lyra, this is my wife, Alara Var. He spoke with a warm smile as he made the introductions. Lyra stepped forward with a gentle smile. Hi, Alara. I'm Lyra. Kaelin always talks about you. He says you're the best military wife in the whole compound. In my past life, those words would have moved me to tears. I would have taken her hand and said, "You're too kind. We're family now, no need to be so formal." But this time, I simply nodded and said, "Hello." Just one distant and polite word, with no trace of warmth or enthusiasm. Lyra clearly froze for a second. She had expected someone warm and welcoming. How could I be so cold? Kaelin noticed the awkward tension and quickly tried to smooth things over. Alara's just recovering from a fever. She's still a bit weak. Don't take it personally, Lyra. Of course not, Lyra replied graciously. Health comes first. Still, a flicker of confusion passed through her eyes. Lyra's staying at the guest house right now. Conditions over there aren't great, Kaylin continued. I was thinking maybe she could stay here for a few days, just until her work assignment is finalized. What do you think? In my past life, I had agreed without hesitation. I even offered to let her take the master bedroom, while Kaylin and I moved to the guest room. Looking back, I had practically handed her the knife she used to stab me in the back. This isn't appropriate, I said flatly. Men and women have boundaries. People might talk. Kaylin's expression changed instantly. Alara, Lyra's my classmate. Does that mean classmates can live together? I cut him off, my voice calm but firm. Captain Var, you're a soldier. You should be even more mindful of appearances. I called him Captain Var, not the usual endearment of Kaylin, and my tone was businesslike, official, like I was handling a formal matter. Lyra jumped in quickly. Alara's right. I wasn't thinking it through. The guest house might be a bit rough, but I can manage. I don't want to cause Kaylin any trouble. Her voice was soft and pitiful, as if I were some cruel, unreasonable wife making things difficult for her. Kaylin looked at her, then looked back at me. I could see the displeasure growing in his eyes. In the past, Alara Var had been the kindest person he knew. She'd bring home stray cats off the street, and now she was treating an old classmate with this kind of coldness. Emily, I have things to do. I'll leave you two to talk, I said calmly, collecting the laundry rack and turning to head back inside. At the doorway, I suddenly stopped and turned to face Lyra. Miss Thorne, even if you're Kaylin's classmate, I still need to remind you, he's a married man. Please be mindful of your behavior. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked into the house, leaving the two of them standing there speechless. Lyra's face flushed bright red, tears welling in her eyes. Kaylin, I wasn't, she stammered. I know, he murmured. But even though he said that, the dissatisfaction in his heart had reached its peak. He couldn't understand how his wife had changed so drastically. She used to be so gentle and kind. Now it was like she'd become someone else entirely. Inside the house, I stood at the window, watching through the curtain. Kaylin was gently patting Lyra's shoulder, whispering something to her. Lyra leaned into him, looking delicate and pitiful, the kind of image that tugged at a man's heart. I had seen this exact scene in my past life. Back then, it had felt like a knife to my heart. I had wanted to rush out and confront them. But now, I felt nothing. Only calm. In fact, I even felt a twinge of satisfaction. In my past life, I had made things too easy for them. In this life, I'd make sure they learned how it felt to fight for every inch. If Lyra wanted to relive her old romance, and Kaylin was ready to fall in love with someone else, then so be it. Let them chase their so-called true love. One thing was certain, I, Alara, would never again be anyone's stepping stone. In this life, that evening, when Kaylin came home, his expression was dark and stormy. Alara, we need to talk, he said, sitting down on the sofa. His tone was grim and serious. I was reading and didn't even look up. What's there to talk about? Your attitude towards Lyra today was out of line, he said directly. She's my classmate and our guest. How could you treat her like that? I finally raised my head and looked at him. And how exactly did I treat her? You know the guest house she's staying in is in poor condition, but you refused to let her stay here. And then, in front of everyone, you said those things to her. Do you know how humiliating that must have been? What did I say? You told her to be mindful of her behavior. Kaylin's voice rose several notches. She's a young woman just returned from the countryside, without anyone to rely on, and yet you question her morals? I put the book down and looked at him quietly. Was I wrong? You're a man, she's a woman. Living together under one roof. Don't you think that deserves some boundaries? We're classmates. Just classmates, nothing more. Oh right, purely a classmate relationship, I said flatly, returning to my book. My indifference only made Kaylin angrier. Alara, what's wrong with you lately? You're not acting like yourself. Not acting like myself? I finally looked him in the eye, a look he couldn't quite read. And what was I like before? That shut him up. The Alara he remembered had been kind and gentle, always thoughtful and patient. She'd put his needs above everything else, looked at him with adoration and followed his every word without question. But now, he couldn't bring himself to say it. You used to be very kind, he finally said. Kind. I let out a laugh, one that made his heart go cold. So you think I'm not kind anymore? You seem so cold now. Being cold is better than being stupid, I said, standing up. Kaylin, we've been married for 3 years. I think I've earned the right to remind you of something. You're a soldier. You have a wife. You should know what's appropriate and what's not. With that, I turned and walked toward the bedroom. Alara, he called after me. You've changed. You're completely different now. I paused at the doorway but didn't look back. People change, Captain Var. Inside the bedroom, I sat down at the vanity and looked at myself in the mirror. Kaylin said I'd changed, and he was right. I had changed. I was no longer the foolish girl I used to be, no longer blind, no longer willing to sacrifice my dignity for a man who didn't deserve it. Was that really so wrong? From the hallway came the sound of the front door slamming. Kaylin had stormed out. I knew exactly where he was going. He was going to Lyra. That's what he always did in the past life. Every time we argued, he'd run to her, pouring out his troubles while Lyra would comfort him softly, saying, Alara must just be under too much pressure. Kaylin, you need to be more understanding. How perfect. Such a saintly, gentle, understanding woman. But this time, I wasn't going to give them the chance. If Kaylin was so obsessed with his pure friendship, then I'd make sure everyone in the entire compound saw just how pure it really was. Early the next morning, I left the house and walked straight to the military district headquarters. I was going to see Mrs. May, the general's wife. Mrs. May was the most respected woman in the entire military compound. As the commander's wife, her word was law. More importantly, she was a strict, traditional woman. Nothing offended her more than a breach in moral conduct. Alara, what brings you here? Mrs. May looked surprised when she saw me. Auntie May, I wanted to talk to you about something, I said, getting straight to the point. What is it? She asked. Come, have a seat and tell me. I sat down on the sofa, organizing my thoughts before I spoke. It's about one of Kaylin's classmates. You mean that girl, Lyra Thorne? Auntie May clearly had already heard something. I heard she's quite the pretty one. Yes, I nodded. She just returned to the city yesterday, and Kaylin wanted her to stay at our house. I thought it was inappropriate, and said no. Auntie May's expression darkened. Letting her stay with you? That's completely improper. But Kaylin said I was being petty. He said I wasn't kind. I added a touch of wounded innocence to my tone. Auntie May, do you think I was wrong? Of course not, she shot up from her seat. A man and a woman living under the same roof like that? What kind of message does that send? Kaylin must have lost his mind. That's what I thought too, I said, lowering my eyes. But Kaylin said she's just a classmate and I shouldn't overthink it. A classmate? And that's supposed to make it okay? What? Classmates are exempt from common decency now. Auntie May was growing angrier by the second. And this Lyra, she's unmarried, right? How could she even suggest staying in the home of a married man? I didn't say anything more. I simply wiped a tear from the corner of my eye. Don't cry, Auntie May said, softening as she patted my hand. Leave this to me. I'll talk to the commander myself. These young officers need some discipline. Conduct issues are not a trivial matter. Thank you, Auntie May, I said sincerely. After leaving the headquarters, I paid several more visits. I went to see the wife of the director of the military hospital, the wife of the logistics chief, and even the elderly lady from the political commissar's family. At each stop, I casually brought up Lyra's situation, mentioning how confused and hurt I felt. None of the women reacted kindly to what they heard. To them, Lyra was clearly a woman who didn't understand boundaries. And Kaylin? Well, Kaylin was completely disregarding his wife's feelings. The gossip spread faster than I could have imagined. By late afternoon, everyone in the military compound was talking about it, and with every retelling, the story grew more outrageous. Some said Lyra had come back just to seduce a married man. Others said Kaylin was planning to leave me. Still others whispered that I was already preparing to file for divorce. When Kaylin heard the rumors, he was completely stunned. He had never imagined things would spiral this far. All he wanted was for Lyra to stay a few days. How had it turned into a full-blown scandal? Captain, the commander wants to see you, said Private Joran, rushing over with the message. Kaylin's heart dropped. He knew now that the higher-ups had been alerted. In the commander's office, General Fong paced the floor. The moment Kaylin walked in, the old man barked. Kaylin, have you lost your mind? Sir, I save it. General Fong snapped, waving off the excuse. I don't care what your relationship with that Lyra is, but let me remind you, you're a soldier, and a soldier should act like one. Yes, sir, Kaylin answered stiffly. And your wife? She's a good woman. She didn't earn the title of model military wife for nothing. If you ever dare betray her, I'll be the first to make sure you regret it. Sir, Lyra and I really are just classmates, I said. I don't want to hear it. General Feng's gaze sharpened. I'll ask you only one thing. Do you still want to keep your position as company commander? Yes, sir. Then you'd better watch yourself. I don't want to hear another whisper about this mess. Do you understand? Yes, sir. When Kaylin left the headquarters, his face was dark as thunder. He knew this had to be Alara's doing. She had gone out of her way to visit all those officers' wives, deliberately blowing the matter out of proportion. She had made sure to embarrass him in front of his superiors. The Alara of the past would never have done this. She had always endured things quietly, never causing trouble for him. But now she was calculating, strategic. She had changed completely. That evening, when Kaylin came home, I was in the kitchen making dinner. When I heard the front door open, I peeked my head out and said casually, "You're back. Wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready." My tone was calm, as if nothing at all had happened. Alara, you went to see Annie Mae and the others, didn't you? Kaylin asked bluntly. What? I replied, pretending not to understand. Don't play dumb. Who else could have told them all about this? I set the spatula down and turned to face him. What are you trying to say, Kaylin? Are you accusing me of something? I just want to know why you had to stir things up like this. What exactly did I do? I shot back. I paid visits to a few elders and mentioned a few things I was struggling with. What's so wrong about that? You knew how they would react, Kaylin said. I can't control what people think, I answered coolly. If there's really nothing going on, why should it matter what others think? Kaylin was at a loss for words. He knew I was right. If there really was nothing inappropriate between him and Lyra, why should anyone's opinion matter? But the problem was, even he wasn't entirely sure what his feelings for her were now. Now even the commander knows about this. You happy now? He snapped. Why would that make me happy? I looked at him, genuinely confused. Is it a bad thing for your superior to take an interest in your life? You do work under him, don't you? You know that's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? I pressed him. Are you saying I shouldn't defend my marriage? That I should just sit back and let people talk behind my back while I pretend everything's fine? Kaylin couldn't argue with me. He wasn't used to this version of me. Confident, composed, logical. The old Alara never questioned him, never argued. She accepted everything silently. But this new Alara, every word cut through his excuses like a blade. I'll get your dinner, I said, turning back to the kitchen. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. Lyra's been assigned to a position at the County Cultural Bureau. She's reporting there tomorrow. Kaylin froze. Since when? This afternoon, I replied, carrying the dishes to the table. I heard the order came straight from headquarters. It hit him instantly. This, too, was my doing. Not only had I blown the situation wide open, I'd even used the momentum to push for her reassignment. She was being removed permanently. This woman, he thought, has become terrifying. You happy now? He growled, gritting his teeth. I don't know what you're talking about, I said evenly as I sat down and started eating. Work assignments are handled by the organization. What do they have to do with me? Kaylin stared at my comm profile, and for the first time, he felt a strange kind of fear. He realized he had never truly understood the woman he married. The next day, when Lyra left, Kaylin went to see her off. I stood by the upstairs window, watching the scene below. Lyra had tears in her eyes. Kaylin's expression was complicated. They stood there talking for a long time. Finally, Lyra stood on her toes and kissed him lightly on the cheek. Plenty of people saw it, and once again, gossip spread like wildfire. I just watched with a cold smile. In my past life, that scene would have torn me apart. I would have run out to confront them, screamed and cried. But now, all I felt was disgust. Their little performance was painfully cheap. When Kaylin came home, his face was dark and stormy. Did you enjoy the show? He asked, looking straight up at the window where I stood. I didn't flinch. I looked right back at him, calm and collected. Not bad. Quite the spectacle. He stormed upstairs, bursting through the bedroom door. Alara, why are you doing this? Doing what? Don't play dumb. You're the one who got Lyra transferred, aren't you? I looked up from my book. Kaylin, I think you've misunderstood something. I'm just a military wife, I said calmly. I don't have the authority to reassign personnel. But you can influence the wives of the officers. Kaylin shot back. I simply told the truth, I said with composure. If that's what you call scheming, then sure, I schemed. Kalen hadn't expected me to admit it so directly. It caught him off guard, leaving him speechless. Why are you doing this to Lyra? He finally asked. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong? I walked up to him, my eyes locked on his. An unmarried woman asks to live in a married couple's home, and that's not wrong? She just didn't have anywhere else to go. There are dozens of empty rooms in this compound. Why did it have to be our home? Kalen tried to defend Lyra, but no argument came to mind. He couldn't come up with a single justifiable reason. And what about that little scene downstairs just now? I continued, closing in on him. A woman kisses a married man on the cheek in front of everyone. That's okay too? It was just a goodbye, he said. A goodbye kiss? I let out a cold laugh. Do you think I'm a fool, Kalen? He was stunned by the look in my eyes. There was no softness, no admiration left in them. Only indifference and contempt. It was like I had become a stranger to him, a stranger he no longer recognized, and maybe even feared. I'll admit, he said after a moment, gritting his teeth. I do have feelings for Lyra, but that's in the past. I'm your husband now. Oh, I gave a single flat response, then turned and walked out of the room. Where are you going? He called out, chasing after me. Divorce, I said without turning back. What? Kalen paled, grabbing my arm in panic. Alara, you can't mean that. Why not? I shook off his hand. You just admitted you have feelings for another woman. What am I supposed to do? Wait around for you to cheat on me? I haven't. I haven't done anything with her, he said quickly. I haven't betrayed you. Maybe not yet, I replied with icy calm. But if that day comes, what then? Kalen, if your heart already belongs to someone else, there's no reason for this marriage to continue. No, I don't agree to a divorce, he said, his voice rising in desperation. We're married, Alara. You can't just walk away over a suspicion. Then make a vow, I said, stopping mid-step and turning to face him. Swear to me that from this day forward, you will never see Lyra again, never contact her again. Kalen opened his mouth, but no words came out. Cutting off all contact with Lyra. Could he really do it? His silence said everything. You can't, can you? I said softly. Then divorce is the best option. Alara, please listen to me. I don't want to listen, I cut him off sharply. Kalen, I already gave you a chance. You chose Lyra. I didn't. Didn't choose her, then swear it. I shot back, my voice turning cold. Swear that you'll never see her again, never speak to her again. Again, Kalen fell silent. He couldn't do it. Even though Lyra had been reassigned, he knew he'd go looking for her. He couldn't control the pull she had on him. If you can't even do that, I said, then don't bother saying any more empty words. I turned and started down the stairs. I'm going to the political office to file for divorce. No. Kalen chased after me, cutting me off at the stairwell. Alara, I won't let you do this. That's your problem, I said calmly, looking Kalen directly in the eyes. But my decision is clear. I'm getting a divorce. Kalen looked at me, baffled. He couldn't understand. Why? Why does it have to come to this? We can move past it. I promise I won't bring up Lyra again. Because I don't love you anymore, I said, cutting straight to the heart of it. It hit him like a thunderclap, shaking him to his core. What did you say? He asked, as if he hadn't heard me right. I said I don't love you anymore. I repeated, my voice steady. Alara, that's impossible, he said, shaken. You've loved me for years. You can't just stop loving me. Why not? I asked. Love fades, just like it appears. I don't believe you. He grabbed my shoulders. You're just angry. You don't mean that. Once you calm down, you'll think differently. I looked at the face so close to mine and felt nothing, not a flicker of emotion. In my past life, I used to dream of hearing him say, I can't lose you. Now that he finally had, I found I no longer cared. Let go, Kalen, I said softly. There's no saving what we had. No, I won't let go, he said, his eyes red. You're my wife. I won't let you leave me. Then you can keep trying, I said, freeing myself from his grip. But I'm telling you right now, no matter how much you resist, I'll find a way to make this divorce happen. With that, I turned and walked out the door. Behind me, I heard Kalen's voice rise into a furious shout. Alara, get back here. I didn't turn around. Not in this life. In the political commissar's office, Commissar Zhang was silent for a long while after I finished speaking. Alara, divorce isn't something to take lightly. Are you two just going through a rough patch? You should talk things through before making such a decision. Commissar, I said firmly. I've made up my mind. I have to leave this marriage. But why? I know Kalen well. He's capable, dependable, a good man. You've been married 3 years. Always looked like a happy couple. Why the sudden change? I had already prepared my answer. Commissar, I've realized we're incompatible, and he has feelings for another woman. I can't live with that. Zhang frowned. You're talking about that girl, Lyra Thorne? Yes, I nodded. Kalen admitted to having feelings for her. His expression immediately turned grave. As a political commissar in the army, he had zero tolerance for misconduct, especially when it involved personal integrity. He said that directly? Absolutely, I said, eyes brimming with unshed tears. I'm a woman, Commissar. I can't share my husband with anyone else. Of course you can't, Zhang said, slamming his hand on the desk. Kalen has lost his mind. That's why I want a divorce, I continued. I don't want to destroy his happiness, but I won't sacrifice my own. Zhang looked at me, this young woman sitting across from him, and felt a pang of mixed emotions. I had always been known in the compound as the model military wife, diligent, dutiful, never once complaining over the past 3 years. And now, here I was, requesting a divorce because my husband's heart had shifted elsewhere. He couldn't help but sympathize. Alara, go home for now, he finally said. I need to look into this. Thank you, Commissar. After leaving the Commissar's office, I made my way to headquarters. I needed to speak with Commander Lee. Guocheng, Alara, he asked, surprised to see me. Commander Lee, I'm here to request to be discharged from my military spouse status, I said directly. Discharged? Why, he asked. I want a divorce. Once the divorce is finalized, I won't be a military wife anymore. There's no reason for me to remain in the compound. Lee was momentarily stunned. Divorce? You and Kalen are getting a divorce. Yes, I nodded. His heart is with someone else. I don't want to force things. Nonsense. Lee burst out in anger. That bastard, Kalen. I warned him already. Please don't blame him, I said, putting on a calm and generous front. Feelings can't be forced. Since he loves someone else, I'd rather step aside than make everyone suffer. No, I can't allow a good woman like you to be wronged. Lee said furiously. Alara, don't worry. I'll make this right for you. Thank you, Commander, I replied sincerely. But truly, I don't want to push this anymore. I just want to leave quietly and start a new life. Lee looked at my determined expression. He felt both admiration and sorrow. What a good woman, and yet Kalen didn't know how to treasure her. He must have been blinded by his own foolishness. News of the divorce spread quickly. The entire compound was buzzing with gossip. Everyone sympathized with me, outraged at how heartless and disloyal Kalen had been. Kalen was summoned to headquarters again. This time, Lee was genuinely furious. Kalen Var, you've truly disappointed me, he roared. You had such a good wife, and you threw her away for someone else. Has your brain been kicked by a mule? Commander, save it. Save it. Lee snapped. The entire compound knows you've fallen for another woman. How am I supposed to explain this to the rest of the officers? Kalen stood with his head down, unable to say a single word. I'll ask you one last time. Do you want to keep this family or not? Yes. Kalen answered without hesitation. Then get your act together. Lee shouted. Forget about Lyra Thorne completely. Cut all ties and go apologize to Alara. Crawl if you have to. You don't deserve her, but she's still your wife. Don't screw this up again. When Kalen left headquarters, his face was as pale as paper. He finally understood. He had truly enraged everyone this time. If Alara really filed for divorce, his future in the military would be over. But could he really forget about Lyra? That beautiful, gentle woman, that perfect youthful first love? Could he truly just let it go? When he returned home, I was packing. What are you doing? He asked. Packing, I said without looking up. I'm moving out tomorrow. No. Kalen rushed forward and grabbed my hand. Alara, you can't go. Why not? I pulled my hand away. There's nothing left between us, Kalen. There is. There has to be, he said, panicking. Alara, I was wrong. I truly realize it now. I swear I won't bring up Lyra again. It's too late. I kept packing. I don't love you anymore. That's not true, he said, refusing to believe it. You've loved me for so many years. You can't just stop. I paused and turned to face him. Kalen, do you even know how I spent the last 3 years? He was stunned. I got up every morning at 5 to make your breakfast. I waited for you late into the night. I washed your clothes by hand, mended your socks one pair at a time. I poured every second of my time and energy into you. And do you know why? Kaylin couldn't answer. So that maybe, just maybe, you'd look at me. So that you'd be a little kinder to me. But you? I continued, my voice steady. You took everything I gave and treated it like it was nothing. You took my love as if it were worthless. And now, the moment your first love reappears, your heart is already wandering. Kaylin tried to interrupt. I'm tired, Kaylin, I cut him off. For 3 years, I gave you all the love I had. Now there's nothing left inside me. I'm empty. There's no room in my heart for anyone anymore. Those words pierced him like a blade. For the first time, Kaylin realized what he was losing wasn't just a wife. It was a woman who had once truly, completely loved him. Alara, I know I was wrong before, but I can change, he said, desperate. Give me a chance. Let me love you again. There's no need. I lifted my suitcase. Kaylin, whatever we had ends here. No. Kaylin blocked the doorway. I won't let you leave. Then keep blocking the door, I said, putting down my luggage and sitting on the couch. I've already filed for divorce. Whether it's today or later, I'll leave. I won't agree to it. Then wait for the court to enforce it, I said calmly. Kaylin completely panicked. He never imagined I would be so resolute. I used to cry, beg, or act sweet whenever there was trouble, always giving him a way out. But now, I was like a different person, frighteningly calm and terrifyingly firm. Alara, tell me, he pleaded. What can I do for you to forgive me? I looked at him, my eyes cold and unwavering. Kaylin, there are some mistakes you just can't fix. Some wounds don't heal. Your feelings for Lyra. That was one of those mistakes. I can forget her, he said quickly. I can forget everything. Forget her. I let out a soft, bitter laugh. Can you really? I stared at him. When you looked at her, your eyes lit up. That light. I've never once seen it when you looked at me. Kaylin was speechless. Do you know what I hate most? I asked quietly. It's not that you loved someone else, Kaylin. It's that in all the years we were together, you never once looked at me like that. My voice was soft, but every word hit him like a hammer. 3 years of marriage, and the way you looked at me was always distant, polite, out of obligation. But when you looked at her, you finally seemed alive. That broke him completely because he knew I was telling the truth. The next day, I really moved out. I rented a small place near the military compound and began living alone. Kaylin came to find me almost every day. Sometimes he begged, sometimes he got angry, and sometimes he tried to threaten me, but none of it moved me. Alara, are you really going to be this heartless? He asked one day, standing outside my door, voice hoarse. I'm not being heartless, I said from inside. I'm protecting myself. 3 years of marriage. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It does, I said after a pause. But it's in the past. The only thing I feel for you now is disappointment. Kaylin leaned against the door, tears in his eyes. He had never imagined losing me could hurt this much. He used to think of me as something like air, always there, always taken for granted, never missed. He thought even if he lost me, it wouldn't matter. Now he knew without air, a person suffocates. Alara, he choked out. I really know I was wrong. Please just give me one more chance. There was silence behind the door. Then, after a long pause, my voice came through. Kaylin, there are some mistakes that should never be made. Some wounds should never be inflicted. Do you understand that, Kaylin? But Kaylin didn't understand. He didn't understand how I could become so distant. He didn't understand how I could stop loving him just like that. He didn't understand why I was so determined to walk away. But there was one thing he did understand clearly. He couldn't lose me. Losing me meant his entire world would fall apart. 2 weeks later, the divorce was officially approved. Both the political commissar and the commander were furious, but they sympathized with me more. A model military wife abandoned by her husband. This caused an uproar across the entire military compound. Everyone condemned Kaylin's heartlessness and praised my strength and courage. Alara was such a good comrade. Kaylin must have been blind. I heard that Lyra Thorne is very pretty. Men just love chasing something new. Poor Alara, so young and already living on her own. These conversations eventually reached Kaylin's ears. Every word cut into him like a knife. He thought about going to Lyra, to ask her if this was really the future she wanted. But he never did. Because suddenly, He understood something. Even if he did go to her, even if they really ended up together, he wouldn't be happy. Because what he had lost was a woman who had truly loved him. And a woman like that, you only meet once in a lifetime. The day the divorce was finalized, I stood outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, staring at the certificate in my hands with mixed emotions. In my past life, I could have never imagined a moment like this. Back then, I treated Kalen like he was my world, my sky, my earth. I thought I couldn't survive without him. But now I had discovered that once I left him, the sky above me was even brighter. Alara, Kalen's voice came from behind me. I turned around and saw him walking toward me quickly. What is it? I asked calmly. I want to ask you something, he said, eyes filled with pain. Do you really not regret it? Regret what? Regret divorcing me? Regret leaving me? I looked at him for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Kalen, the only thing I regret is not leaving you sooner. It was like thunder cracking through a clear sky. Those words shattered him. That's not possible, he murmured. You can't not love me. You're too full of yourself, Kalen, I said lightly. No one in this world is truly indispensable. I used to think I couldn't live without you, but that was only because I'd never tried. Now I know I'm doing just fine without you. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Kalen standing alone on the steps. The sun was setting. His shadow stretched long and thin behind him, just like the loneliness that now filled his life, endless and all-consuming. After the divorce, I didn't fall apart like everyone expected. On the contrary, I became even more driven and full of life. I found a job as an elementary school teacher in the county. In my free time, I started teaching myself English and began preparing for the reinstated National College Entrance Exam. When the government announced in 1977 that the Gaokao would resume, the entire country was buzzing with excitement, and I was no exception. In my past life, I gave up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Kalen. But in this life, I was going to take charge of my own future. Alara, are you really planning to take the college entrance exam? Asked my young neighbor, Lisa. Of course, I nodded. I want to go to college. But you're already 22, and you're divorced. Lisa hesitated. So what? I asked calmly. Being divorced means I can't go to college? No, that's not what I meant. Even if you pass, it'll be hard to find someone to marry later. Who said I'm looking to get married? I smiled. I'm perfectly fine on my own. Lisa was stunned by my words. In this era, it was rare for a woman to remain unmarried, especially someone like me, young and attractive. People just assumed I would eventually remarry, but I made my position clear. I had no intention of getting married again. Preparing for the college entrance exam was grueling. I worked during the day and studied at night, often reading until the early hours of the morning. And yet, I felt fulfilled and happy. That feeling of striving toward a goal, of fighting for something that belonged to me, was something I had never experienced in my past life. Back then, all of my energy had been devoted to taking care of Kalen. I had never once fought for my own dreams. Only now did I realize how beautiful it was to live for myself. When I went to register for the exam, something unexpected happened. Comrade, are you sure you want to apply to Peking University? The registration clerk asked, double-checking. Yes, I nodded firmly. But your qualifications? The staff member looked a little troubled. Peking University is the top university in the country. Competition is incredibly fierce. I know, I said, but I believe in myself. In my previous life, I never took the college entrance exam, so I never knew my true potential. But in this life, I discovered that I actually had strong academic ability. Maybe it was because I no longer had emotional burdens to weigh me down. My mind was clearer and my memory sharper. When words spread through the military compound, it sparked a fresh wave of gossip. Alara's applying to Peking University? Seriously? That's the best school in the entire country. She's just a grade school teacher. Can she really make it? Even if she doesn't get in, you've got to admire her courage. When Kalen heard the news, he was sitting in his office, staring blankly into space. For the past 6 months, he had been a mess, making frequent mistakes at work and struggling in his personal life. He had tried to reconnect with Lyra Thorne, hoping to recapture that familiar feeling, but when he finally saw her again, the excitement he had imagined was nowhere to be found. Instead, he felt a hollow emptiness he couldn't explain. That was when he finally understood what he had felt for Lyra wasn't love. It was nostalgia, a longing for youth. But what he had lost in Alara was something entirely different. She had truly loved him. "Captain, what are you thinking about?" asked his aide, Private Joran. "Nothing." Kalen shook himself from his thoughts. "What did you just say?" "I said Alara's taking the college entrance exam," Joran repeated. "She's applying to Peking University." Kalen froze. The Alara he had known was a gentle, traditional housewife. She had never shown any interest in academics. And now she was aiming for the best university in the country. "That's right," Joran continued. "I heard she studies late into the night. Everyone says she's really determined." Kalen said nothing. A heavy silence fell over him. Only now did he begin to realize he had never truly understood the woman he married. She didn't lack ambition. She just sacrificed it all for him. And now, without him weighing her down, she was finally living as her true self. That realization filled him with deep, aching guilt. He hadn't just ruined a marriage. He had destroyed a woman's youth and her dreams. As the exam date drew closer, I entered the final phase of my study sprint. My daily routine became strict and disciplined. I woke up at 5 a.m. for morning reading, worked during the day, then returned home and studied late into the night. Everyone around me admired my perseverance. "Alara really is something else," my kind landlady said with sympathy. "She works, studies, and still manages everything on her own." Yeah, Kalen was a fool. How could he let a woman like that go? The neighbors said, all expressing indignation on my behalf. These whispers eventually reached Kalen, and each word made his guilt deepen. He started hanging around near the neighborhood where I now lived, just hoping to catch a glimpse of me. But every time, he didn't have the courage to approach. He didn't know what he could say, because now even, "I'm sorry," felt far too shallow. So all he could do was watch me from afar. Watch me leaving early and coming home late every day. Watch me rushing down the street under the glow of street lamps. Then one night, he finally couldn't hold back. "Alara," he called out to me at the gate of the neighborhood. I stopped and turned around to look at him. "What are you doing here?" I wanted to see you." His voice trembled. "Is there something you need?" I asked calmly, my tone emotionless. "No, nothing in particular. I just wanted to see how you were doing." I looked at him. There wasn't a single ripple in my heart. "Well, you've seen me. I'm fine. If there's nothing else, I'll be on my way." "Wait." Kalen called out quickly. "Alara, are you really applying to Peking University?" "Yes." "What? Why choose somewhere so far away?" His voice carried pain. "Can't you stay here and go to a local college?" I looked at him, and in that moment, I understood something. "Kalen, do you think I would change my plans because of you?" "That's not what I meant." "It is," I interrupted. "You think I chose Peking University to run away from you, don't you?" His face flushed. He didn't deny it. "Well, let me tell you," I said, voice cool and steady. "You're wrong. I chose Peking University because it's the best university in the country. You never even entered into my consideration." That sentence hit him like a knife to the chest. "Alara, do you really not care about me at all anymore?" he asked, almost pleading. I looked at him, quiet for a long time, before finally answering. "Kalen, do you know what it means for a heart to go completely cold?" He shook his head. "It means when someone truly gives up, nothing you do can make them feel anything. No pain, no joy. That's how I feel about you. I don't hate you. I don't love you. You're just a stranger to me now." "No, that can't be," he whispered. "You can't possibly feel nothing at all for me." "Why not?" I asked. "Kalen, you think too highly of yourself. Do you really believe the whole world should revolve around you?" "I never thought that." "Yes, you did." I cut him off again. "Otherwise, you wouldn't assume my life choices should be based on how you feel." He was speechless. "This is the last time I'm going to say this, Kalen," I said clearly. "There is nothing between us anymore. My life, my choices, they have nothing to do with you. So please stop showing up and disturbing me." And with that, I turned and walked into the complex, leaving him standing at the gate. The night wind was cold, and he shivered. But colder than the wind was the emptiness in his heart. On the day of the college entrance exam, the entire city was buzzing with excitement. Countless young people walked into the testing centers, determined to change their fate. I was one of them, wearing a simple blue mouse suit with my hair neatly tied back. I carried a confident smile on my face. Most of the examinees were teenagers, 18, maybe 19. At 22, I stood out as one of the oldest candidates. But I didn't care about the stares. I only cared about my goal, to get into Peking University. The first subject was Chinese. When the test papers were handed out, I quickly skimmed through the questions and felt a sense of assurance. They didn't seem too difficult. Even though I hadn't had the chance to go to college in my past life, I'd always loved reading. My foundation in literature was solid. I wrote calmly, my handwriting neat, and my thoughts clear. The second subject was math, the one I worried about the most. My foundation in math wasn't strong, so I devoted most of my study time to it during prep. To my surprise, most of the questions on the math test were ones I could actually solve. All the hard work I'd put in over the past few months hadn't been for nothing. Next came the English test, then political science and history. I did well on each one. I felt sharper and more focused than I ever had before. My thoughts were clear, my memory precise. Outside the exam building, crowds of parents waited anxiously. When I stepped out of the testing center, I spotted a familiar figure standing among the crowd. Kalen was there, eyes locked on me with a hopeful look. Our eyes met. He started to take a step forward, but I turned away before he could approach. I didn't have time for him. The only thing on my mind now was the result. Waiting for the scores, waiting for the acceptance letter. A few months later, the results were released. I had been accepted into the Chinese department at Peking University with outstanding scores. The news spread quickly and caused a sensation throughout the county. A divorced woman getting into the most prestigious university in the country. It was nothing short of a miracle. Amazing. Truly amazing. Who says women are inferior to men? Alara is the perfect counterexample. She's what you call a real strong woman. Kalen must be regretting everything now. Praise, congratulations, and admiration came pouring in from every direction. I became a local celebrity and inspiration to countless women. When Kalen heard the news, he was stunned. He had never imagined I would actually get into Peking University. In his mind, I had always just been a simple housewife, someone with no special talent. Only now did he realize how wrong he had been. I hadn't lacked talent. I had simply buried it for years while taking care of him. Now that I was free from the burden of our marriage, I could finally shine. That realization shook him deeply and filled him with guilt. He hadn't just lost a loyal wife. He had lost a woman of remarkable ability. And once a woman like that walks out of your life, she's gone forever. The day I received my acceptance letter, I invited a few friends over. Mrs. Lee, my kind landlady, Anna, my young neighbor, and Lily, a colleague from work. We were all filled with joy. Alara, you're the pride of all of us women. Anna said excitedly. Exactly. Who cares if you're divorced? You still made a name for yourself. Lily added enthusiastically. Mrs. Lee took my hand, her eyes moist. Child, you've had a tough year, but now the worst is behind you. Looking at the people around me, people who genuinely cared for me, my heart swelled with warmth. This was what real friendship and true support looked like. Compared to Kalen's shallow affections, these sincere connections meant so much more. Thank you, everyone, I said as I raised my glass. Here's to new beginnings. To new beginnings, they all echoed, clinking glasses in celebration of my fresh start. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Anna went to open it and returned a moment later with an odd look on her face. Alara, Kalen's here. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about my past with Kalen, and they all supported my decision to leave him. His sudden appearance made things awkward. Let him in, I said calmly. Kalen stepped inside, his eyes sweeping over the lively scene before settling on me. A bitter smile tugged at his lips. Congratulations, he said. Getting into Peking University, that's really something. Thank you, I replied flatly. I was wondering if I could speak with you alone for a moment, Kalen pleaded softly. I glanced at the friends still in the room, then gave a small nod. All right. We stepped out onto the balcony. The sun was setting, casting shadows over the distant mountains, now dimly silhouetted in the evening haze. Alara, I wanted to say, I'm sorry, Kalen said, his voice quiet. You've already said it, I replied calmly. I know, but I wanted to say it again. Kalen looked at me intently. Now I finally understand just how incredible a woman I lost. Too late, I said flatly. Yeah, too late. He gave a bitter smile. Alara, you're going to have a bright future. I know it. I hope so. He hesitated, then added, about Lyra. What about her? I asked. What about her? I didn't go to see her, he said. We've been apart for a while, and in that time, I've come to realize a lot. What I felt for her. Maybe it was just an illusion. I didn't respond. I felt nothing hearing those words. What I really want to say is, now I know what true love is, Kalen continued. Alara, could we ever? I cut him off. Kalen, whatever it is you're about to ask, my answer is no. His face went pale in an instant. Why, he asked. If I didn't go to Lyra, if I've realized my mistake. It doesn't matter, I said, turning to face him. Don't you understand, Kalen? The problem was never whether you saw Lyra or not. The problem is that she had a place in your heart. But now doesn't change anything. My voice was firm. Some damage can't be undone. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. What you felt for Lyra was that kind of mistake. Kalen closed his eyes in pain. Alara, I really do understand now. Understanding isn't enough? I said quietly. Understanding doesn't. Mean we can start over? He asked, searching my face. I met his gaze, unflinching, steady. No, Kalen. There's nothing left between us. With that, I turned and walked back inside, leaving him alone on the balcony. The night had fallen, and city lights twinkled in the distance. He stood there motionless, as if trying to hold on to something already gone, and I knew he finally understood. He had truly lost me for good. When the day came for me to leave for Peking, I packed my simple luggage and boarded the train. People from all over the county came to see me off. I had become a source of pride, an example of independent womanhood and strength. Alara, write to us when you get to Peking, someone shouted. Study hard. We're all waiting for your good news, another added. When you become a great scholar, don't forget to come back and visit, said Mrs. Lee, her voice choked with emotion. Their sincere blessings filled my heart with warmth. I waved goodbye to them all and stepped into the carriage. The train slowly pulled away from the platform, the scenery outside the window beginning to blur as it sped past. I sat by the window, watching my hometown fade into the distance, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I thought of everything I had been through, of the version of myself who once gave up everything for Kalen. That woman was gone. Now, I was a new Alara, a woman living for herself. The train picked up speed, carrying me toward a new life. Back on the platform, Kalen stood silently at the rear of the crowd. He watched the train disappear down the tracks, and deep down, he knew this was goodbye forever. From now on, Alara and Kalen truly belonged to different worlds.